Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of video games. We cover all kinds from the mainstream to the indie, so I hope you enjoy your stay, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. The war between the Jedi and the Sith isn't exactly going well for the Jedi. The Sith destroyed their temple on Coruscant and forced them to run away, so they've headed back to their homeworld on Tython to get back to their roots, regroup, and rebuild. A new Padawan, that's you, is on the way to Tython to finish his trials and do his part to strengthen the Jedi Order. As soon as your ship lands on the planet, you get welcomed by a member of the Jedi Council named SWTOR, which is a little out of the ordinary since council members don't usually show up to greet new students. But considering the fact that your potential is far beyond that of the average Padawan, CO wanted to see you in person. Your new teacher will be a Jedi Master named Yuan, who left her dig site specifically to train you. But she's late. That's not like her, so that means something is probably wrong. She confirms that it is once she finally gets there. Tython has a lot of old Jedi relics on it, and some of the researchers have found some hologram projectors meant to teach young Jedi. They hold records from the founders of the Jedi Order, which means they can't be replaced if something happens to them. Unfortunately, something might happen because a whole lot of flesh raiders are destroying stuff in the area. Someone needs to go out and retrieve the projectors before something happens to them, and Yuan wants that to be your first bit of training. CO doesn't think that's a good idea, but since you were stronger in the Force at 4 years old than Yuan was at 15, she thinks you can handle the mission. Of course, you're up to the challenge, and you head out to complete your first task. The holograms are made by the founders of the Jedi, and while you get 3 of them, someone had already stolen one, which is not something that the wild flesh raiders would have done. That means someone else stole the thing. Yuan's gonna get to work on finding out who actually did it, and she wants you to meet her at the Jedi Temple. When you get there, Yuan is talking to a Trandoshan named Kizan Fess. He's a friend of hers who's in the area for a hunting expedition, which is very important to his people. They've been friends for a while, but not too many people actually approve of their friendship, not even the other Jedi. But she wanted you to meet him before anyone told you bad things about him that weren't true. After the lizard man heads off, Yuan lets you know that the hologram that was stolen was one from the Jedi Master Rajavari. He was one of the members of the first Jedi Council, and he was the first one to turn to the dark side. There's not much information on him, but from what Yuan knows, he was extremely powerful. The thing that was stolen could hold some of his secrets, which won't really be all that good in the wrong hands. That means you need to find it quickly. Yuan thinks it had to have been taken by the Twi'leks that are living in Kalikori Village. They're poor and pretty much have to do anything that they can to survive, which means if they did take it, they probably won't be all that eager to give it back, and that means you'll have to be very persuasive. That'll be even harder than usual since the Republic doesn't want the Twi'leks on the planet at all, and because of that, they've forbidden the Jedi from helping them in any way, even when they're being attacked by the flesh raiders. So they probably really don't like any of you, but you head over there anyway to talk to Bashen, the captain of the village's guard. As expected, the people of the village are not all that happy to see you, but when you tell them you were sent by Yuan, they open up to you a little bit. Out of all of the people on Tython, she apparently has been willing to help the villagers from time to time. Turns out a Twi'lek named Nalen Relak had found the projector and took it. The man is somewhat of a hero to the villagers. He saved a lot of their lives, sets their defenses up against the flesh raiders, and is pretty much the reason why they are able to live in even slight comfort. So they're not all that willing to tell a Jedi where he is since there's only so far that they trust you. However, once you tell them that the data in the hologram might actually be dangerous, they tell you where he is mainly because if a Jedi thinks something is dangerous, it's probably very dangerous for regular folks. Nalen's out in Flesh Raider territory, likely at a camp that he set up, so you head out there to try to find him. You find his camp in the heart of Flesh Raider territory, and he does have the projector. He says he goes to the area to think, and he wants to know why you're bothering him since he's not exactly in a place that anyone will wander into by accident. When you tell him that the villagers told you where to find him, he has no doubt that they also told you all about how he's supposedly their hero and all of that. But he doesn't really think he can claim that title until he's gotten rid of the monsters that attack his people for good. And he can't exactly do that until he's finished his own training. See, he's been hunting for the Jedi relics that are scattered around Tython too, and he's been using them to train himself in the ways of the Force, which is pretty impressive to be honest. But once he's mastered his new powers, he plans on forcing everyone other than his people off of the planet. That way they can finally live in peace. The things he's learned from the fallen Jedi Rajavary has made him pretty confident that he'll be able to do it. And he proves just how strong he's become in the Force by causing the cave you're in to start collapsing, for the sole purpose of burying the Flesh Raiders alive. Since you're not exactly a fan of dying along with them, you grab the projector and book it out of the cave and back to the Jedi Temple. When you get back to Yuan, you let her know about Nalen and how he's learned to use the Force from watching Rajavari's hologram. She finds that to be impressive too, but apparently the training has also made his mind a little bit unstable. That makes Yuan even more curious about what information was on the thing, so the two of you fire it up and watch. Turns out the Jedi left some information about something Yuan calls the Fount of Rajavari. When he had died, some people claimed that he had made a place that held all of his knowledge. Jedi looked for it for a long time, but they never actually found anything, so it eventually got written off as some nonsense. But since the fallen Jedi confirmed its existence out of his own mouth, that pretty much changes things. The problem is Nalen heard the same thing that you did, and he's likely looking for the Fount at that very moment, which means you need to beat him to it. The hologram left a hint, saying to follow where the first blade points from the Sanctuary of Order, which Yuan thinks might be a place called Kaleth. It's a ruined fortress that was destroyed during a very big battle, and there are plenty of droids just wandering around the place, meaning it's still pretty dangerous. What she doesn't understand is the whole first blade thing. Normally when a Jedi talks about a blade, they usually mean lightsabers, but since the laser sword hadn't been invented yet, that's not possible. Either way, Yuan thinks stopping Nalen will be good training for you, so it's off to Kaleth you go. The first thing you see that draws your attention is an odd rock with some words that you can't read on it. But a very old droid shows up and lets you know that the first blade is there and he's the one who guards it. It was made by a man who saw the Jedi as warriors, not scholars, and he made the original Jedi weapon that would eventually become the lightsaber. The first blade is worn away over time, and now the only thing that's left is the hilt. There was only one Jedi who actually proved himself worthy enough to take it, and that was Rajavari. After he took it, he eventually brought it back for some reason that the droid doesn't know, and he doesn't exactly care. He just knows that if you want to take the hilt, you'll have to prove yourself in combat. The weapon master left some training droids behind so his students could actually test themselves physically, and the old droid sends you off to fight them. Once you've dealt with them, they send a report back to the old droid to let it know that you proved yourself to be a worthy warrior. So the droid gives you the first blade. The hilt's been altered a bit, and it has markings on it that are designed to store information, so it looks like the sword hilt is actually a weird flash drive full of information that you have no idea how to access. But you found it before Nalen, so you call Yuan to let her know. It makes sense to her that the hilt would be a storage device, since Rajavari said that the blade will act as a guide. She'll figure out how to get the information off of the thing, so it's time for you to head back to the temple. When you get back to the temple, you run into Master Seal again, along with another Jedi Master named Jarek. They've heard about Nalen and his hunt for Rajavari's secrets, and they've heard about how Yuan thinks that the Force is guiding you on the path after him. They've heard of the Force doing that before, but blindly trusting the Force isn't the Jedi way either. Just following it without using common sense could lead to some not so good outcomes, which makes it a terrible way for a master to train their apprentice. The fact that Yuan is letting the Force train you without any guidance, and she's bringing a Trandoshan into the temple, has the other two masters questioning her methods and her sanity. The council has voted to let her keep doing what she's doing for a while longer, but they're worried that it might end bad for you. Your mission is important, but not at the expense of your life. They leave you with that cryptic warning and you go to meet with Yuan, who's talking to Kizan. When she sees the hilt that you brought, she says that it really does look like a prototype lightsaber. Rajavari's hologram said that the hilt needs to be brought to a cave in the mountains, a cave that just so happens to be the spot where the founders of the Jedi Order became the first council. Kizan actually knows about that cave. It's full of flesh raiders, so he wants to come with you since it'll give him a chance to do a bit of hunting. Hunting powerful creatures is a primary tenet of his religion, so it makes sense why he'd be so eager to go with you. And you obviously won't mind the extra muscle, so you head off. The cave is in fact full of flesh raiders that you have to cut a path through, something Kizan says earns you a lot of points with this god, the scorekeeper. Basically, depending on how good of a hunter someone is, that determines their place in the afterlife. And you don't have to actually believe in the scorekeeper for her to keep track of your points. That's all interesting, but it's irrelevant at the moment. The only thing that matters is finding the second clue to the Fount of Rajavari, and it has something to do with the 3 giant monuments at the back of the cave. Unfortunately, the words on them have faded over time, so they're pretty hard to make out. Keeson notices that the bones piled up in front of the monument don't seem to be there on accident, and that's not something the Flesh Raiders would have done. So you push them out of the way and you find a small machine that has an opening that's the perfect size for the hilt you found to fit in. Before you can see what will happen when you put it in, a group of Twi'leks from Nalen's village show up. Nalen sent them to take the first blade from you, since he needs it if he's going to keep protecting their village. When you refuse to give it to them, they attack you because for some reason they think they could actually beat a Jedi. You prove them wrong, then you use the hilt on the machine, which makes a hologram of Rajavary appear. He says that the Jedi Council did form in that cave, and that was where he heard his friend's plan for the Order. And he also realized that their plan would have their group be weak and useless. So he decided to make an army and get rid of the Council. That way he and his apprentices would transform the Jedi into what they needed to be. The proof that he succeeded in his mission would be if he put the hilt of the first blade back where he found it. Since you actually have the blade, that means he must have succeeded. You making it as far as you have means you're meant to find the fount, and the hologram reveals a map showing you where it is. The map isn't exactly easy to figure out, so you head back to Yuan to see if she can help you figure out where to go. The map points to some caves that Keeson has been to on some of his hunts. He had never actually been looking for any ancient Jedi ruins on his other trips there, but since he knows what he's looking for, he figures that he'll be able to find the place for you. You offer to go with him, but he's pretty sure that he can search better on his own, so he leaves you and Yuan there to keep studying Rajavari's hologram. It's a good thing that you did because there's a message saying that the fount of Rajavari is booby-trapped, and only someone who follows the fallen Jedi's path will make it through. The problem is you have no idea what Rajavari's path was, which means you'll have to figure it out. Yuan figures that you can find that information on some of the computers that were found out in the Kaleth Fortress, since that place was Rajavari's base. The computers are all password protected. However, the hilt of the first blade might give you access to those computers too, so it's worth a shot. It works, and the computers reveal the final logs of Rajavari's apprentices. Apparently, the Jedi Council survived his attack and they were coming after his people. Since their master died in the battle, they knew they were going to share his fate, but Rajavari taught them to never show mercy, so they planned on taking as many Jedi with them as they could. They brought down a lot of them by being brutal and violent, which is pretty much the way the Sith operate, so Rajavari's path is basically being a selfish, power-hungry, violent dick. Not sure how that'll help you get past the traps, but you head back to the temple to let Yuan know what you learned. She's impressed that Rajavari had trained students who were strong enough to hold off the Jedi Council, even though it was only for a little while, but the history lesson is not as important as getting to the fount. But for some reason, Keeson hasn't made it back yet. He's had more than enough time to carry out his search, so you head out to the caves to look for him. You find him locked in a cell in one of the caves. Nalen had apparently followed him and tortured him for information on the location of the fount. He wishes the man had killed him after because there's no greater dishonor in his religion than being captured alive. All the points he's earned with his god throughout his entire life has been lost with that one failure. Even in the face of that, he didn't tell the man where the fount was, not until Yuan showed up and asked him for the information herself. The thing is, Yuan never left the Jedi Temple. Nalen had used the Force to make Keeson think that he was talking to her so he could get the information, which means you need to hurry if you want to catch him. Keeson has no problem guiding you there, mainly because he wants to see Nalen die for tricking him. The fount's traps are actually a series of tests meant to see what type of Jedi you are, and if you prove to be the wrong type, things will probably go badly for you. You pass the test and come face to face with Rajavari himself. He's obviously dead, but his Force ghost is still hanging around. He's not surprised to see you there. Nalen actually beat you there, and Rajavari figured that someone would be after the man, but he's gone now. Rajavari had refused to become one with the Force because the Jedi were imperfect, but in his lab he had made some machines that could give one apprentice decades worth of experience in a day. That way he or she could carry on his mission and he would finally be able to fade away. He had thought that Nalen would be that apprentice, but the Twi'lek didn't make it through the traps with his mind intact. Granted, the man was crazy in the first place, so he was obviously only going to get worse. Rajavari admits that that's his fault. Nalen didn't have the mental capacity to handle the knowledge that he got, so he never should have tried to turn him into his heir. But he did, and instead of remaking the Jedi into something great, Nalen wants to wipe them all out. And he plans on starting by destroying the forge where the Jedi make their lightsabers. Rajavari wants you to stop the Psycho because his goal was never the end of the Jedi. He just wanted to make them stronger. He figures you'll need a real weapon if you plan on beating Nalen, and since you're carrying around the hilt of the very first blade, a crystal from the caves by the forge and a little bit of work at the forge itself will give you a working lightsaber that you can use to stop Nalen. He tells you how to get to the forge, and after that you point out that he inadvertently completed his mission of making the Jedi stronger when he forced the Jedi to go to war with him. The ones who weren't strong enough died, but the ones who beat him and his followers proved themselves to be true warriors. When he realizes that what you said is true, he finally becomes one with the Force and fades away, leaving you to continue the mission. The first step is to get your lightsaber crystal, which is guarded by a not-so-nice monster. Then you make your way to the forge and craft your weapon while Tython stands watch. You finish the weapon right when Nalen shows up with a few of his people. He plans on killing you and destroying the forge. Granted, the people he brought with him aren't fully on board with the man, but they follow his lead, so you beat them all up without killing them. Instead, you plan on bringing him back to the Jedi Temple and letting them judge him. Seeing how you handle that situation, Tython starts to believe that you're actually a herald of the scorekeeper, and he'll follow you anywhere and help however he can. Apparently, you don't have to worship the scorekeeper to earn that title, which is good because it gains you a very useful ally. You've saved the day, so you head back to the Jedi Temple to tell them the good news. When you get back to the council and tell them what you've seen, they want to hear everything about the Fount of Rajvari. Yuan finds the fact that you saw Rajvari himself to be incredible, and despite the odd way that she trained you, the other masters have to admit that letting you go on that mission was the best training you could have possibly gotten. And since you completed everything up to crafting your own lightsaber, they think you've earned the right to graduate from being a Padawan to a full-fledged knight. And as a knight, they want to know what you would do with Nalen. There's only two things that the council can do. They can kill him, or they can train him as a Jedi. That way they can monitor him and boost their relationship between the Jedi and the villagers. They think that's a good idea, so that's the plan they'll move forward with. Things seem to have turned out well, but while she's promoting you to the rank of Jedi Knight, Yuan collapses. Apparently she's been sick for a while, but she kept it a secret. The council has no idea what's wrong with her, but it's pretty bad. They're sending her to Coruscant for treatment. The researchers there have been going through the ruins of the Jedi Temple, and they may have found some teachings that could help heal the woman. And the masters want you to go with her to help in any way that you can, which is something that you were going to do anyway. So it's off to Coruscant you go to meet with the researcher Atros to hopefully save your master's life before it's too late. And that's where we're going to stop for today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you can, and I'll see you all next time.